Hey, as Christians, we all want to make godly plans that God blesses with success and favor. So before you make any plans, make sure you understand this profound wisdom from Proverbs chapter 16 that changed my life. Let's read the passage. This passage here in Proverbs 16 is profound. And verse 1 says, "The plans of the heart belong to man, but the answer of the tongue is from the Lord." So I want to notice a couple things as you read the Proverbs, and this is specifically for the wisdom literature. I would encourage these Bible study tips. But when you read the Bible in general, okay, take note of words like but. It's a conjunction. Essentially, it's changing the direction of a thought. So we're talking about the plans of the heart and how they belong to man. But there's something else the author wants to speak to. The answer of the tongue is from the Lord. So let's talk about these things. We and our hearts, and I'm going to highlight this in blue, okay? The plans of the heart are said to come from within. That doesn't mean they can't be influenced by God, right? But our own heart, whether being influenced by God or not, is going to be the source of the plans we make. Those plans belong to us. That's where free will comes into play. But the answer of the tongue, and I have a question. What is the answer of the tongue? Why is that something that the author's focusing on? He says that's specifically from God. So notice the word but here is contrasting what human beings have responsibility over and what God ultimately oversees in his sovereignty. We have the plan part, right? God, he has the answer part. And what this means, that's why I put question marks. When you read the Bible, ask questions and go, well, what does it mean that the answer of the tongue is from the Lord? What does the answer from God have to do with the plans of man's heart? That's worth meditating on. Think about that. Well, let's keep reading and maybe we'll get our answer. All the ways of a man are pure in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the heart, or the spirit, sorry. I read something in there that wasn't there. The word but is there again. And what I want you to notice is sometimes when you read the Bible, the author or whoever's speaking will repeat an idea or repeat a specific way of saying something in a different way. Okay, so here we have two things being compared, contrasted. The plans belong to man. The answer belongs to God, right? All the ways of man are pure in his own eyes, but what does God do? He weighs the spirit. So we have almost that same rhythm and pattern that we saw in the first verse. What man has or does, and then what God does. So notice that when you read the Bible. And here we have, all the ways, which I would say, there's so many thoughts going in my head, but not only should you recognize repeating words when you read the Bible, but notice any words that seem to be interchangeable or synonyms of each other. For instance, the word plans here and ways, those seem to, for me at least, go together. And I can verify that suspicion by going and look at what the Hebrew word means and what the Hebrew word translated for ways means. And I can do that, but I can also just keep reading. And my suspicion is the plans of the heart belonging to man is related to the ways of a man being pure in his own eyes. And I would say the ways or the plans that we make are pure in our own eyes. The way we live is pure in our own eyes, right? We evaluate our own plans and our own ways as correct. But ultimately, it's God who weighs the spirit and weighs the spirit behind those plans and whether or not those things are right or wrong. And God sovereignly, in his own power and in his own wisdom, determines whether or not our ways are indeed pure or right? In other words, everyone thinks they're right, but God is the one who actually weighs the spirit to really tell you whether you're right or not, in the plans you're making, in the ways of your life. Now, verse 3. So I just want you to notice, right, that the plans and the answer here are kind of being compared. And in verse 2, the ways and the weighing are being compared as well. God weighing the spirit behind the ways of our life, the spirit behind a man, the spirit behind the plans. In verse 3, it says, "Commit your work to the Lord, and your plans will be established." Now, in the wisdom literature like Proverbs, Job, Ecclesiastes, you can't necessarily say that every single verse is as fluidly connected or as neatly organized as, say, the Gospels, or say the epistles, or say the prophets. Sometimes these thoughts are so sporadic that you can't really make sense of how they connect. But in this case specifically, it seems as though the committing of one's work to God is related to the ways of a man, or the plans of the heart. Okay? So just like I said, I think ways and plans are essentially the same thing, right? I also believe that, once again, this word here, work, is just another way of saying ways and plans of a man or a heart. The work should be committed to God, right? And your plans will be established. And you go, why do you think work and plans and ways are all interchangeable? Why do you think they're the same thing? Because right here he says, commit your work to God. And then all of a sudden he talks about your plans being established, as if they're at least connected, if not the same thing, right? The work we commit ourselves to and do is essentially planned in our heart first. It's the extension of our planning. It's our plans, being brought to fruition by us working it into reality, right? You make a plan, you do it. And the author is saying, the plans of your heart, the ways of your life, they might seem pure. They might belong to you at first and be sourced in your heart. It's a good idea to commit your work, your plans to the Lord. And guess what? This word "and" tells us what will happen. When you do this, God seems to do this. Your plans will be established. Not just in a general sense, like your plans will happen to be established. It seems as though God weighing the Spirit here and God giving the answer is related to the plans being established here. That's why I would say God is the one establishing the plans here. Now, it's not the universe, not like Mother Nature. This is God establishing our plans when we commit that work to Him. And a lot of people, sadly, don't do that. The Lord has made everything for its purpose. Now, you might think the author's going off on some poetic rant that is unrelated, but I beg to differ. What I want to think about as I read verse 4 is, how might these ideas relate to what I've already read in verse 1, 2, and 3? About the ways of a man seeming right or appearing to be right in your own eyes, and God weighs the Spirit, or the plans of the heart belonging to man, but God gives the answer, or committing your work to God and He establishes your plans. I want to think about how all those ideas might relate to what I'm reading here. The Lord has made everything for its purpose, even the wicked for the day of trouble. So there's a concept being brought in explicitly called purpose, right? And even the wicked have a purpose. And specifically, God has made I'm highlighting everything here in yellow that I'm noticing real time right now for you, for no specific reason except that I have a yellow highlighter in my hand. The Lord here makes everything for what? For a purpose, right? And we see that in this example here. What is made is the wicked. The purpose for the wicked, those who reject God and rebel, well, they have a purpose. The day of trouble is what they're purposed for, right? The same thing we can see in everything. The Lord has made everything for its purpose. How does that relate to what we've already read? That's why I said wisdom literature can sometimes be very sporadic and unrelated, but in this case, I believe it is connected. Like sometimes Solomon will go off, he'll talk about like animals, and then all of a sudden it's like in gold, and you're like, oh, wow, it's just supposed to be almost like a bullet point list of wisdom, topical wisdom. In this case, though, everything being made for a purpose, and the wicked being an example of that, I believe is related to God establishing our plans. Meaning everyone has a heart, everyone that's alive, right? The source of your life, the operation center of your life is often referred to as your heart. That's the source of your plans, right? So there's a purpose behind our planning, right? But God ultimately establishes our plans, or He won't, based on His what? His purpose. So God has an ultimate sovereign purpose over everything. That includes the plans and the work we commit ourselves to and the ways of our life, and whether or not God will allow our plans to be fulfilled and established, or whether or not our ways are right or wrong, or whether or not the plans we make in our heart are answered by God as being right or not, or the answer of the tongue here, I think, refers more to God giving direction to the plans of our heart and us asking for direction and clarity. He is the one who answers our plans with a yes, go ahead, or no, shut that down. But we submit our plans, commit your work to the Lord. And then he establishes that or not, and that's why the purpose is brought in. We make plans with a purpose, but God's purpose to establish that or not is his sovereign decree and not mine. Now, I don't have time to read through the rest of these verses, but I want to, direct your attention to verse 9 here. It says, the heart of man plans his way. That's kind of what he said in verse 1. But the Lord establishes his steps. Now, there are a number of ways to read this. If I connect this verse to everything I just showed you in verse 1 through 4, well, it makes a lot of sense. He's already talked about God establishing our plans. He's already talked about the heart of man making plans, right? But now he kind of brings it all together and says, look, people make plans. And the concept of our way here relates to the plans, as my suspicion was here in verse 1 and 2. Right? So the author kind of brings those ideas together for us and validates my suspicion that people make plans. Our way of life is sourced in our heart. But, there's that word but again, the Lord ultimately is the one who establishes, concretely allows for those plans to happen, or directs our steps and brings clarity to our steps. He's the one who does that. Whether our plans are approved or whether our plans are denied, we can choose. We have free will to make plans, but God is sovereign over those plans to allow them to work out or not. But also, the establishing of the steps here is actually God providing ground for us to step out on when he approves of a plan. So if we make a plan and we bring it to God, like he says, commit your work to the Lord, and God goes, okay, that's good, I want you to do that, go forward. Well, he's going to provide the footing or the grounding for us to step out on. Not just so that our steps can be established, but so that the plans and the ways of our heart that he's approved of can be established. So this is not just God saying yes or no, like some divine yes or no man. This is God also bringing clarity and direction and guiding us as the good shepherd as we take steps forward. So my encouragement to you is, when you make plans, commit that work to the Lord. Meaning, ask God for clarity. Commit your work being, hey, ask God for his will to be done, even if it is not what you initially wanted or planned in your heart. Be okay with your plans not working out, and desire God's will and his purpose above even the purpose and plans of your own heart, right? So that includes letting God establish our steps and seeking him to do so. And not just assuming, well, all my ways are right. Well, initially, they are right in your own eyes. But it's God who weighs the Spirit and will tell you whether or not those ways are pure or right. And then from there, right, when you commit your work to the Lord, he will establish those plans, allow you to move forward, or direct your steps elsewhere. But be open to God directing your plans to be something different. Be open to God establishing your steps elsewhere or shutting down your plans. Either way, this goes back to Proverbs chapter 3. In all your ways acknowledge God, and he will absolutely make your paths straight. This is what I encourage people to do when they make plans. Bring it before the Lord continually with every step. Be okay with your plans not working out. Ask God for his will above your own. And let God weigh the Spirit behind your plans as you commit your work to the Lord. Meaning, let God bring clarity to the spirit, the motivation, the heart behind the plans you're making, to help you weigh that decision and take steps forward or not. Hey, if you guys didn't already know, if you are frustrated when you read the Bible, if you are confused, if you don't know where to start, if you're bored, I encourage you to take our free 40-day Bible study program online. It's self-paced. It's in the description below. Go check that out. Or check out abovereproachministry.com for all the other free resources and online classes we have. Thanks for watching. Whether you watch those videos or take that program or not. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next Bible study walkthrough. Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do that and hit the bell so you can be notified of any future videos that come out. And check out abovereproachministry.com. We have completely free Bible study courses, a 40-day program, a 27-day, and 11-day program, all kinds of free resources. You can get a copy of my book. You can join our online church. You can get some merch. We have a bunch of stuff at abovereproachministry.com. And it's also linked in the description below. Go check that out. And thanks for watching.